The chosen bond, the sky on Veralia was always purple. Clouds moved like slow waves, and the air smelled like sweet dust. Ryle stood on the edge of the high platform, her silver tail wrapped tightly around her leg. She was shaking. Today was the day. The council had chosen her, but not for an honor, not for something she wanted. No, she had been chosen to bond with a human. She had never seen one before. Only heard stories, dark stories. They are cold, the elders said. They don't feel like we do, whispered the others. They want control. They break who they touch. Her chest felt heavy. Her hands were cold. She wanted to run, to disappear into the forests. But her name had been called, and once chosen, there was no escape. The platform lights blinked blue. A loud hum echoed across the sky. The human ship was arriving. Riel's heart pounded like war drums. The shuttle landed slowly, its silver body shining like a knife under moonlight. Steam hissed from its sides. A ramp opened. Shadows moved inside Dot. Then he stepped out, tall, broad shoulders, wearing dark armor with the Earth symbol glowing on his chest. His hair was black, his skin pale. His eyes hidden behind a clear visor. Riel stepped back without meaning to. Her tail flicked in fear. She had expected a monster. A loud voice, sharp words. But the man said nothing. He looked around. Then his visor lifted slowly, revealing his face. No expression, no smile, but also no anger. Just tired eyes. He looked at her, and in that one moment, she stopped breathing. Not because of fear, but confusion. His eyes looked soft. The elder stepped forward and spoke. Human soldier Jace, you are now linked to Ryle of Veralia. She will stay with you, learn your ways, and share her life. In return, protect her. Care for her. Jace didn't nod. He just replied in a quiet voice. I understand. The elder looked at Ryle. Go. Ryle's legs refused to move. He was standing still, not reaching out, not moving toward her, not demanding. That made her even more nervous. She walked slowly, every step feeling like a mountain. When she reached him, she didn't look up. He didn't speak, just turned and said, Come on. The ship is warm. She followed, head low. Inside the shuttle, it was silent. No music, no voices. Just the soft hum of energy. He offered her a seat, sat far across from her, didn't touch her, didn't even look too long. She kept glancing at him, waiting for him to change, to shout, to grab her, but he didn't. He stared out the window like someone lost in thought. Ryle looked down at her hands. Her fingers were shaking. Was this real? Or was he hiding something? The ship flew fast across the dark skies. After some time, he spoke again. I don't know what they told you about me, he said, voice flat, but not cold. But I won't hurt you. Ever. She didn't answer. Couldn't. Her throat was tight. Stood and walked to a cabinet, pulled out a small blanket, walked back and placed it gently near her. For warmth, he said. Then he walked away again and sat back down. That one act confused her more than anything else. Why wasn't he acting? Like the stories? Where was the control? The power? The commands? She looked at his face again. His eyes weren't cruel, just tired, like someone who had seen too much war, too much pain. Her heartbeat slowed a little. Not much, but enough to notice. Later, when the ship landed near his outpost, he stepped out first, then looked back and simply said, You can. Stay in the left room. No one will bother you. She followed him inside. The house was small, but clean, quiet, peaceful. He didn't lock any doors. He showed her how to use the food replicator, where the sleeping bed was, where the water was kept, and he left her alone. That night, Ryle sat in the dark, thinking. She had feared this man. She still did, but something strange had happened. For 1 second, just one, when she looked into his eyes, she didn't see a monster. She saw a soul. His eyes weren't like the stories. 800 words, third person, simple English, suspenseful and emotional. Real woke before the artificial sun had risen. The small outpost room was quiet. The walls were metal, but the bed was soft. She had not expected comfort. She had expected a cage, chains, orders, but instead, silence. She stood slowly, wrapping her tail around her waist. The blanket he gave her had fallen to the floor. She picked it up and held it tight. It still smelled like him metal, cold air. And something else. Something peaceful. She hated that it calmed her. Outside the door, she heard footsteps. Slow. Measured. Not heavy. No stomping. No boots crashing. She stepped out carefully. There he was, Jace, the human. He stood at the window, drinking from a maw cup, staring out at the sky. His back was turned. She could leave, run. He wouldn't notice, but she didn't move. He noticed her anyway. "You're up early," he said without turning around. She didn't reply. He didn't seem to expect her. To Dot, he pointed to the food station. "Breakfast replicator is voice activated. Say what you need. Or I can help if you want." Ryle stayed quiet for a long time, then finally asked, "What do you eat?" He smiled slightly. "Something awful." Then added, "You don't have to eat what I eat. You're free to choose." She narrowed her eyes. "Free?" He turned, leaned against the wall, and met her gaze. Really looked at her this time. That's when it hit her again. His eyes weren't cold, weren't hollow. They were tired, soft, deep. Not like the stories, not like the warnings, not like the monsters they told her about. He noticed her stare and lowered his head slightly. "No one prepared me for this either," he said. She blinked. "You didn't want this bond?" "No," he said. "But I didn't fight it." "Why?" His voice was quiet. "Because maybe it's a chance to be seen, not as a soldier, not as a threat, just human." Ryle didn't know what to say to that. Dot. No human had ever said anything like that before. At least, not in any of the Varelian records. She tried to distract herself, stepping toward the replicator. "Warm fruit tea," she said. It buzzed and served her a cup. She sipped carefully. Jace turned back to the window. "I lost someone once," he said suddenly. "Not in battle, just lost." She looked at him. He didn't explain more. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. He didn't answer right away, then finally said, "Because when I looked into your eyes yesterday, I saw the same kind of pain, and it didn't feel right to stay silent." That hit her harder than any weapon. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No demand, no control. Just honesty. She finished her tea, trying to ignore how warm her chest felt now. Not from the drink, from his words. Later, Jace handed her a small device. "Translator," he said. "So you don't have to struggle with language. You can speak Varelian if you want. You understand my tongue?" She asked. "Enough to know when someone calls me a hairless frost beast," he said with a small smirk. Her eyes widened in surprise, and she couldn't stop a tiny laugh. It shocked them both. Jace didn't react much, but he smiled. Not with his mouth, with his eyes. That smile made her breath catch again. She quickly looked away. What was happening to her? That night, she stayed in her room. But she couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about his eyes, his words, his silence, his kindness. Could a human really be like this? Or was this all still a trick? She crept out of bed and tiptoed down the hall. His room was at the far end. The door was open a little. She peeked inside. He was asleep on a simple mat. Not even a bed. No weapons. No guards. Just him. She stared at his face. He didn't look dangerous. He looked broken. Like someone who had lost battles both inside and out. A noise escaped him, soft, sad. He turned in his sleep. Whispered a name. A girl's name. Ryle stepped back quietly. Her heart was racing again. But not from fear. From curiosity. From something new. Something terrifying. Cliffhanger ending line. Ryle returned to her room and stared at the wall, wondering if she was afraid of him, or of what her heart was starting to feel. His world, her rules, 800 words, third person, simple English, emotional, unique, suspenseful. The next morning, Ryle didn't wake to the sound of alarms or orders. She woke to music. Soft, low notes played from somewhere in the outpost. Not loud. Not meant for anyone but the listener. She stepped out of her room. Her feet were bare. Her silver tail flicked once behind her as she moved. There he was again, Jace, sitting at a table, holding a steaming mug. His eyes were half closed, just listening to the music. He looked peaceful. Ryle didn't speak. She simply walked past him toward the food replicator. She still didn't trust him. Not completely, but something had changed. She wasn't hiding anymore. She made her tea and sat across from him, keeping her back straight, her face blank. He turned off the music. Too loud? He asked. No, she said softly. It was. Nice. He nodded and took another sip. Silence stretched between them, but it didn't feel heavy this time. It felt calm. Almost natural. Then he asked her something unexpected. Do you want to see the outside? She raised an eyebrow. Outside? Outside where? He smiled. Outside this base. There's a cliff trail. Flowers bloom in the sun tunnel. I think you'd like it. Her heart said no. Her curiosity said yes. All right, she said after a moment. They walked side by side down the hill trail. The ground crunched softly beneath their feet. The wind was light and warm beams from. The artificial sun touched the landscape gently. Real couldn't believe it. Blue flowers. Real ones, not the kind created by machines. She stopped walking. Jace turned back. Something wrong? No, she whispered. They're real. He walked over and gently touched one of the petals. I planted them years ago. She stared. You? He nodded. When I was transferred here, this place was dead. I wanted to change that. But why? She asked, confused. You're a soldier. You destroy, not create. He looked at her quietly for a moment, then said, That's the problem. That's what everyone expects. So I do the opposite. That made her blink. He handed her a small blue flower. She hesitated, then took it. It felt cool in her fingers. Alive. For the first time, she looked at him without fear, just curiosity. Who was this man? Back at the outpost, he showed her how. Things worked. He didn't give her rules. He didn't say, do this, don't do that. Instead, he said, if you're curious about anything, ask me. But no pressure. Ryle was used to structure. Virelian homes had strict rules. No one made choices on their own. But here, it was like she could breathe differently. Her favorite thing became watching Jace work. He had quiet habits. He cleaned his tools with care, repaired drones like they were friends, fed a small animal that came to his window every day. He never raised his voice, never acted like she owed him anything. One night, as he sat repairing an old music box, she finally asked, the question that burned in her chest, why are you kind to me? Jace didn't look up, because kindness is rare. I remember every person who showed it to me, and I want to pass it on. She frowned. Even if I'm just an assigned partner? He did look up then. You're not just anything, Ryle. Her breath caught. She turned away quickly. This is your world, she said. But I don't belong in it. Jace was quiet for a while. Then he said softly, That's where you're wrong. This world? It's yours now, too. If you want it. Ryle didn't reply. But that night, she placed the blue flower in a small glass cup beside her bed. She didn't know why. The next day, she decided to test something. She made breakfast for him. It was a simple dish, one she knew from home. The replicator didn't get it exactly right, but the smell was close. Jace stepped into the kitchen, surprised. What's this? He asked. Beryllian morning cake, she said without emotion. If you hate it, I'll throw it out. He took a bite, chewed slowly, then smiled. I love it. Ryle turned away so he wouldn't see her eyes soften. He didn't need to see that, not yet. That evening, while looking through the window, Ryle finally spoke what she was feeling inside. I still don't trust you completely. Jace nodded. That's fair. I was raised to fear your kind. I was trained to fight yours. But you don't act like what I expected. Neither do you, he said with a gentle tone. They both stood in silence. Then she said, almost in a whisper, Your world is strange. Then make it yours, he said. Add your rules. She looked at him, not just looked, saw him, and something deep inside her shifted. Cliffhanger ending line. That night, for the first time, Ryle didn't fall asleep fearing the human beside her. She fell asleep wondering how someone like him could exist at all. The truth under his skin. 800 words, third person, simple English, deep, emotional, and unique. Ryle sat near the window, quietly watching the sky change from soft gold to deep violet. Another day had passed in silence, in peace. Too much peace, it made her uneasy. Back home, peace was a lie. It came just before betrayal. But here, Jace said nothing, expected nothing. He simply lived near her, but never pressing toward her. And that was the strangest thing of all. She turned her eyes toward him. He was working again, fixing a broken drone, his fingers moving with quiet skill. There was a small scar across his wrist. She had noticed it before, but never asked. This time, her curiosity won. How did that happen? She asked. Jace. He looked down at the scar, then shrugged. Training accident. Long time ago. You never heal it? He gave a soft laugh. It reminds me to stay careful. She tilted her head. But humans don't seem careful. You fight. You destroy. He paused, then slowly stood up and said, You want to know the truth? Ryle blinked. About what? About me. He walked past her and stopped at a wall panel. Tapped a few keys. A hidden drawer slid open with a quiet hiss. Inside was a small black box. He brought it over and placed it on the table between them. Open it, he said. Ryl hesitated, then slowly lifted the lid. Inside were broken metal tags, old ID cards, photos, and a blood-stained cloth folded tightly. Her hand trembled slightly. What is all this? Memories, Jace said quietly. And mistakes. He sat across from her. The soft light from the table lamp cast long shadows on his face. I was part of the Earth Federation shock unit, he began. We were trained to be fast, cold, efficient. We didn't talk. We followed orders. Ryle listened silently. There was a mission. A Virelian village. They told us the people there were hiding weapons. They told us to clean it. He looked away. But they lied. Ryle's eyes widened. There were no weapons, just farmers, families, children. He swallowed hard. When I realized what was happening, I stopped firing. I stood in front of a mother and her son, told the others to stop. He paused again. They didn't, so I stopped them. even my own commander. Her voice came out in a whisper. And then I was stripped of rank, sent here alone, away from everything. Riles stared at him. Her chest ached with something she didn't understand. They gave you me, she said softly. As punishment? He looked up at her. His eyes were red. No, you were never a punishment. He opened his jacket then, slowly, showed her the long scar on his ribs. Blade wound, he said. I got it protecting that same child. Ryle reached out without thinking. Her fingers gently brushed the scar. Jace flinched only slightly, but didn't pull away. She pulled her hand back quickly. Embarrassed. I'm sorry, she whispered. No, it's all right. She looked at him, her voice softer than before. Why tell me this now? Because you've been honest with your fear. I wanted to be honest with mine. She felt her throat tighten. She had feared him from the beginning. Hated the idea of being chosen, forced into something. But now, she saw what he had hidden under his skin. Pain, regret, honor, and something else. A quiet kind of strength. Later that night, Jace went outside to reset a cum tower. Reel stayed behind, but she wasn't still. She walked through his room again. This time not looking for secrets, but for truth. She found a small notebook beside his bed. Inside were sketches of flowers, of her, of stars. Pages filled with quiet thoughts. Her hands trembled. No human in the stories had a heart like this. She set the book back where she found it, then sat by the window and waited. When Jace returned, he looked surprised to see her still awake. Everything all right? He asked. She stood up and walked to him. Thank you, she said. For what? For not being the monster they told me you'd be. He looked down, almost shy. I'm just trying to be ... better. She nodded slowly. So am I. Cliffhanger. Ending line. That night, Ryle didn't dream of fear or war. She dreamed of blue flowers, and the scar she had touched with her own hand. One step closer. 800 words. Third person. Simple English. Emotional. Suspenseful, deeply unique. The days moved slowly after that night, but not in a bad way. For the first time in her life, Ryle felt something strange in her chest. Not fear, not anger. Something warm, quiet, like standing near a fire after a storm. She no longer avoided Jace. Now, she watched him. When he smiled, she noticed. When he frowned, her heart twitched. She didn't understand what it meant. Her people had no word for this feeling, but she knew it was real. One morning, Reel cooked again, this time without asking. The same Virillian dish. She adjusted the flavor. Added sweetness. When Jace entered, he blinked at the smell. You're spoiling me, he said. She gave a soft reply. Maybe you need to be spoiled. He laughed, and this time it wasn't just polite. It was real. The sound filled the room like sunlight. Ryle looked down, cheeks warm. Why did his laugh affect her so much? Later that day, she explored the base more deeply. Jace showed her the garden dome, a small area of real grass and artificial sunlight. Birds from Earth flew overhead, trained to live in the dome system. Ryle stepped onto the grass and gasped. It's alive. Jace stood beside her. Yeah, grew it myself, bit by bit. She knelt and touched the soft green blades with trembling fingers. You grow life, she whispered. You help me keep it alive, he replied gently. She looked up at him. Their eyes met. And for a second, just 1 second, it felt like something clicked between them. Like two broken pieces finding a perfect fit. She quickly looked away. That night, she found herself standing at his door, not knocking. Just ... standing ... thinking ... and then his voice came softly from inside. Can't sleep? She hesitated. No. Come in, he said. I was making tea. She entered. It was quiet, cozy, warm lights, books, his drawings. He handed her a mug. Their fingers touched for a brief moment. The touch sent a shiver down her arm. She wasn't used to that feeling. He noticed, but said nothing. He just sat down and waited. She finally asked the question she had been holding for too long. What happens if I stay? He blinked. Stay? Yes, here, with you. He set his cup down slowly. You're not a prisoner, Ryle. You never were. You can stay. If that's what you want. But you don't want someone else? Jace looked straight into her eyes. No one else knows me like you do. That made her heart pound. She looked down quickly. The next morning changed everything. Message arrived from the Varillian High Council. The moment Ryle opened the screen, her face went pale. Your test is complete, the voice said coldly. Return immediately for evaluation. Emotional contamination will be cleansed. Jace stepped in and heard part of it. What do they mean cleansed? She shook her head. They think I've grown too close. To me? She nodded. They believe human bonding weakens the Varillian spirit. They will test my loyalty. If I fail, they may remove all emotional memory. His fists clenched. That's insane. It's our way, she whispered. But it's not your way, he said firmly. She looked at him. Her eyes were glassy. If I leave, they may never let me return. Jace stepped closer. You don't have to go, he said softly. You don't owe them anything. She stared at him. My whole life, I believed in duty, obedience, control. But now, I believe in kindness, in the sound of your voice in the morning, in your blue flowers. Her voice cracked. I don't know what this feeling is. But it feels more real than anything I've known. He stepped closer. Then stay, he said. Not as a guest. Not as a soldier. As you. Tears slipped from her eyes. She didn't wipe them away. She just whispered, I'm afraid that if I stay, they'll come. I'm more afraid of you leaving, Jace said, voice shaking. The look that changed everything. 800 words. Third person, simple English, emotional, powerful, and unique. Ryle stood at the edge of the landing pad. Wind blew softly across her face. The Varillian ship was almost here. Her return had been ordered. Her heart had not agreed. Behind her, Jace stood quietly, not touching her, not stopping her, just there. Like always. She didn't know what to do. Her people believed feelings made you weak. Humans believed feelings made you strong. And right now, she was caught between both. The sky split open. The Varillian transport ship descended with a low, humming growl. Its lights scanned the pad. It had come to take her home, if she stepped forward. Now, everything would return to the way it was. No JACE. No warm tea in the mornings. No music. No blue flowers. No laughter. No scar stories. No quiet smiles. Only silence, training, and forgetting. They would make her forget. JACE broke the silence. Behind her, you don't owe me anything, he said. She didn't turn around. But if you do leave, he continued, I'll still remember every moment, every smile you gave without meaning to, every question you asked like it held the weight of the universe. His voice cracked. I just want you to be free, even if freedom means walking away from me. Ryle closed her eyes tightly. The pain in her chest was sharp and heavy. Why do you talk like that? She asked softly. Because, he said, this might be the last time I ever get to. The Varillian ship opened its side hatch. Two guards stood waiting. Cold. UNMOVING. No welcome. No warmth. Just duty. The voice came through the ship's speakers. Ryle of Varelia. You are to board immediately. Emotional bonds will be neutralized. Purpose will be restored. She took one step forward. JACE didn't move. She took another, and then stopped. Her hand touched the necklace she didn't realize she was wearing, one he had made for her out of folded metal and flower stems. Suddenly, the wind wasn't cold anymore. It was pushing her backward, toward him. Slowly, she turned around. Jace stood a few meters away. He didn't look desperate. He looked open. Waiting, not for her body, for her choice. And that was the moment. Everything changed. She saw it. In his eyes. The truth no story ever told. Humans weren't monsters. They were mirrors. They reflected what you showed them. And Jace had only ever reflected back her hope. Stepped forward, not toward the ship, but toward him. The guards raised their weapons, confused. She ignored them. She kept walking. One step, then another, until she stood right in front of him. JAC. He didn't speak. His breath was shaky. Ryle looked up, met his eyes, and this time, she was the first to smile. I'm not yours, she whispered. Because I was given to you. She placed her hand gently on his chest, over his heart. I'm yours because I choose to be. Jace's hands trembled slightly. He reached out carefully and placed them around hers. Then I won't let them take you. She smiled wider. They can't. They already lost me. Suddenly, the guard shouted, Stop! This is against command protocol. Ryle raised her voice clear, powerful. I will not return. You are bound by code. No, she said. I am free by choice. The guards hesitated. Jace stepped forward, shielding her with his body. But she didn't need it anymore. She stepped beside him, not behind. The ship's engines began to power down. They wouldn't force her. Not here. Not now. She had spoken her heart, and her heart had chosen him. That night, the Varelian ship left without her. Rel sat beside Jace in the garden dome. Her hand rested in his. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The stars above them blinked gently, as if watching. Two souls. Two species. But only one truth between them. They had both been afraid. And they both surrendered to something greater than fear. A single look that changed everything.